Hello, I'm Gary Frankenberry from Textorrents Productions, and this is video 2 of building a Hackintosh computer from a Linux user standpoint. In the first Hackintosh video, I discussed the gear that I use for the Hackintosh build. It was not my intent to teach you about how to create a Hackintosh because there are guidelines and videos for that available on the web, and most Linux users are likely to plow through all that material and successfully build a Hackintosh. But I do want to share with you the issues that I had and my feelings regarding Linux versus Mac OS X. So here we go. On the first boot after the Hackintosh installation, the computer of course wouldn't boot. Clearly some more research was needed. This research led me to the TonyMacX86.com page titled The Asrock Uefi Boot Fix. This article suggested that the Asrock motherboards have a poor or incomplete Uefi implementation, and the article gives directions for an involved and elaborate fix. This fix in the article involved my booting the Hackintosh computer from a Linux DVD and then following a detailed set of instructions to make my Asrock motherboard system to correctly load OS X. This involved running a Linux utility program called Uefi Boot Manager. I did this and configured the Uefi bootloader system according to the instructions. I then successfully booted the Hackintosh computer into OS X. However, this entire process would not have been necessary had I chosen to use a Gigabyte brand motherboard rather than the Asrock motherboard, as this Uefi Boot Manager fix does not appear to be an issue with Gigabyte brand motherboards. Though I can now boot my Hackintosh, I noticed that the graphics performance was extremely sluggish. When setting up the Hackintosh computer earlier, using a configuration utility called MultiBeast, I chose to inject the NVIDIA drivers into my boot configuration. However, if you read the documentation on TonyMacX86.com carefully, you will see that those injected drivers only support the NVIDIA GeForce 9000 series, 200 series, 400 series, and 610 through 630 cards. Of course, I have a newer NVIDIA GeForce 980 card. Whoops. So I went back to the page on TonyMacX86.com and followed their guidelines for downloading and installing NVIDIA's alternate graphics drivers for OS X, which do support the newer NVIDIA video cards. Another reboot, but no joy again. Still sluggish graphics. I finally realized that I needed to remove the older injected driver, so I needed to edit a file on the Hackintosh called config.plist. There are utilities on TonyMacX86.com that allow you to do this. So I rebooted one more time, and lo and behold, this fixed the video driver's problem. So how's the Hackintosh system working? Well, pretty good. I've got good audio, networking, and graphics response. All the applications I've installed work well, including Final Cut Pro and HitFilm Express. Problems? Well, there was an issue with audio. That is, when I power on the system and leave it on and unused for an hour or two, sound stops working. I have to shut down and reboot to get the sound working again. I did some internet research on this, and there are a couple of proposed fixes for this issue, but I haven't had time to carry them out. However, I did a temporary fix for this problem by going into the Settings, the Energy Saver module, and turning off computer sleep. So what does it take to do all this? Well, it wasn't a trouble-free experience, and certainly not for the faint of heart. Persistence is a key factor here. The information you need to do this is out there somewhere. A good many Linux users will criticize me for using a Hackintosh. And I do wish Linux had more powerful and robust video editing applications. Those in development under Linux, namely the applications Kdenlive, PTV, OpenShot, FlowBlade, and Cinlara, just aren't there yet. I do find using Linux much more comfortable than working with Mac OS X. And Linux remains my primary operating system and is the sole operating system on 4 of my 5 home computers. I did find considerable open source and free software for the Mac that I'm using to run on Linux. For example, Mozilla Thunderbird, Google Chrome, LibreOffice, Audacity, GIMP, and VLC Media Player. So what's next? I would like to turn my Hackintosh machine into a multi-boot Linux and Apple OS X system. I've been busy learning the Swift programming language, and I'll soon be making videos on learning Swift. And so, that's it. Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.